So once again, welcome to our chat for staying involved musically. My name is Molly Schaefer. I am a life member from the Kappa Beta chapter, Clemson University, and I am going to be the moderator tonight. Our three wonderful panelists are Mr. Eddie Igareda from the Lambda Psi chapter, Ms. Brittany Woodruff from the Pi chapter, and Mr. Tony Shelton from the new Kappa chapter. I've already introduced myself, so panelists, I would love for you guys to introduce yourself, your name, your chapter, your university, your initiation date, and your current career. So ladies first, we'll start with you, Brittany.
Cool. Hi, my name is Brittany Woodruff. I'm a life member of the Pi chapter at Auburn University, War Eagle. I was initiated in spring 13, and I am currently an environmental educator at Georgia Aquarium in Atlanta, Georgia, and a graduate student at Western Governors University studying for my master's in data analytics.
Awesome. Let's hear from Eddie next.
Hi all, my name's Eddie Eduardo Higuereta. I am a chapter co-founder and life member of the Lambda Psi chapter at San Jose State University, San Jose, capital of Silicon Valley. Go Spartans. And what I do currently is I am an inside salesman for electrical metering and electrical cable tray or infrastructure.
Awesome. Now let's hear from Tony.
Hello, I am Tony Shelton, a charter member of the new Kappa chapter at Georgia Southern University. What else? I am a trumpet and French horn specialist working on a doctorate in music education, which I am now in dissertation phase. And as far as occupation, I am a music serialpreneur.
Awesome. It sounds like we've got a great array of people tonight. So I'm just going to go ahead and jump in with question number one. I'm going to read each question and then I will call on a panelist to respond to the question. I've already got this all planned. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Question number one is, do you have any tips to stay motivated to practice your instrument individually, even if you're not part of a larger band? Eddie, let's hear from you first.
Yeah, I mean, it really comes down to, staying motivated is a personal choice, a personal matter. You got to look at yourself to really decide, hey, do I want to keep this going? If so, how do I want to go about it? Do I just want to work on solo, small ensemble stuff? Do I want to go into just practicing etudes or studies? Or do I want to, jump in whole hog, so to speak, and go right into an ensemble? That's really a moment of self-reflection that you need to decide on as an individual.
Awesome. Thanks, Eddie. Brittany, what about you? What do you think?
So I just listen to a lot of instrumental music because I am a diehard band nerd at heart and will never give that up for anything. But really, when I hear music with good riffs, it makes me want to learn how to play it. Lately, I've been listening to the Goosebumps musical soundtrack, which has a really killer bass clarinet part, and that's made me want to really try and dig into it so I can maybe play those really cool parts. So I really just recommend listening to music. Find something that inspires you and makes you really want to play.
That sounds great. I know how easy it is to suddenly get obsessed with something because it has a good riff in it. All right, Tony, what about you? Especially because you're in the entrepreneurial side of the music business.
When it comes to the practice aspect, I take a two-pronged approach because I'm a big jazz and pop music person. I'll start off my working on fundamentals with my classical chops, and I use that as a momentum to actually start playing along with backing tracks. So you can find a lot of backing tracks on YouTube, popular music, jazz tunes, things of that nature. So it's kind of doing the play along when I'm not performing with a large ensemble.
That's great. And I love that you have such a wide approach to what you want to do with music and what keeps you involved in music, which is going to lead me right into question number 2, which is, why did you stay involved musically after graduating? Brittany, we'll hear from you first on this one, although you kind of answered it with the last question. Still would love to hear your thoughts on that one.
Yeah. So I joined a community band right after I graduated college. That was actually run by an honorary brother of the Pi chapter. I really like the camaraderie aspect of being in community band, because you're not playing for a football crowd. You're not playing for class credit. You're playing because you want to. And it's all people from all different walks of life, all different ages. And the fact that you can come together to create something that's bigger than all of you, no matter where you are at that point in life, that meant a lot to me. But also, I just really like playing my instrument. It brings me a lot of joy. It brings me a lot of peace because my brain goes a mile a minute constantly, and I do a lot. So it helps me to kind of ground myself a little bit as well.
Awesome. Tony, what about you? Why did you stay involved musically after graduating?
Oh, well, after playing in military bands for 25 years and then going back to school for music, composition, as well as instrumental conducting, I like to take a quote from the late Robert W. Smith. I don't have a job. I don't have a career. I realize that I have a lifestyle that pays me very well. And once I realized that I can actually make money off of arranging and composing, well, let's turn this into a lifestyle. And I haven't worked a day since I made that conscious decision.
Awesome, because if you do something you love, you never work a day in your life. All right, Eddie, what about you? Why do you like to stay involved, or why did you stay involved musically after graduating?
Staying involved musically after graduating was just a no-brainer in my mind. I wanted to just constantly keep my chops up with any sort of small ensemble or even a community band, and there were a couple of years where I would just take a hiatus, but I always felt like something was missing, and so it's personal choice to constantly be in at least one ensemble any time of the year.
Awesome. And now we're going to move into question number 3, and I'm going to modify it a little bit because you guys have already talked about some of this. But how did staying involved musically benefit you? Tony, we'll start with you. Obviously, you have pretty deep backstory with all the involvement that you've had.
Well, I did teach for 10 years, and I took a systematic approach after the military. Well, during that time, that I chose not to have children until I was able to give them 100% of my time. So staying involved musically, I no longer have a boss. So I get a chance to actually watch my kids grow up every minute of the day. If you've been to a convention, you've probably seen them with me, the whole family. So that's been one of the biggest benefits of it, to wake up, come into my office, get to work, and I can take those breaks and spend that time with my children. So that's the biggest benefit for me.
That's awesome. All right, Eddie, how did staying involved musically benefit you?
Honestly, it just helped me stay involved with not only the local music scene, but the local art scene. Back when I was living in San Jose and in Campbell, I was with a community band based out of one of the high school districts out there, and people talk and they say, "Hey, I've got a gig here. I need a sub for. Hey, do you want to make some money on the side?" And I was like, "Sure," networking essentially, but also just keeping in touch with folks within those ensembles in everyday life, whether it's in the music scene or the art scene in and around the metropolitan area that I was in.
Those connections are so valuable. Thank you for sharing. All right, Brittany, how did staying involved musically benefit you?
So I graduated in December of 2019 and had absolutely no plan. And didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, had a degree, didn't know how I wanted to use it, didn't have a job, had no idea what I was going to do, but I knew that I was going to be showing up to community band on Monday evenings, and that gave me direction, and something to look forward to, especially while I was kind of in the haze of I just graduated and now I don't know what to do with my life. But it helped me also to keep in contact with people that had already graduated, that were still in school. It was kind of a nice bridge with that. But wildly, it has also helped me at my job at the aquarium. Um, it has helped me in a couple of different ways. One of them is when I go to schools for outreach and teach about biology and the aquarium there. It's something that helps me to connect with a lot of students. It's like, hey, you're in band. I was in band. Let's talk about how some of these things actually mean something later in life. It's also helped me to explain what a diaphragm is, because you hear your band director all the time tell you like to fill up, to take a deep breath, to fill up everything, expand your diaphragm. But I actually get to give them context for what that actually looks like now, which is wild. But also I have gotten to write some really cool lesson plans that involve sound and music. And that's something obviously that I still have a lot of passion for, and being able to share that, and have that kind of background and connection, it means a lot to be able to talk to different people from all over.
I mean, it goes without saying, music is a language and truly the greatest of the arts. A universal language. Sorry, left out a word. It's been a long day. All right, so moving into question number 4. How did you find the band or bands that you joined after graduating? Eddie, you already talked about this, and you're up first for this one.
Yeah, actually, there were quite a few that I took part in for a semester or two here and there. After my time at San Jose State, I went on and would play at some of the local community college bands. Just I'd hear, hey, we need somebody for the jazz rock combo, or we need somebody for the San Mateo concert band and whatnot. And I just like, hey, I'll introduce myself, see if I fit, and bang bang boom, let's go.
Well, that networking piece again. All right, Brittany, how did you find the bands that you joined?
So I had joined my community band in Auburn, the East Alabama Community Band. Shout out to the home team. But I joined while I was still in college. So when I graduated, I just continued along with it, but had a lot more availability and mental capacity for it. So I felt like I was able to do a lot better. Um, but since I have moved from Auburn, I now live in Atlanta. I'm actually in the process of trying to find a band, so I'm starting all over from scratch. Being a bass clarinet player, there's not a lot of people who need that. Uh, but I have been able to network a little bit because of other brothers, connections that I have in Atlanta, and I'm starting to put out some feelers for community bands again.
Awesome. And Tony, how did you find the bands that you joined, or the ensembles?
Lots of networking, a lot of networking within college, during different conferences, GMEA and Midwest, things of that nature. And actually just putting out some cold calls or cold emails, emailing different churches as we're coming up on the holiday season. I am pretty much completely booked for the first 2 weeks of December. So just reaching out and making those connections, and submitting my resume with my background and everything, and just the networking.
Awesome. You hear that, my friends? Networking. It's a big deal, not just in your career field, but in music as well. All right. Next question is, what do you recommend looking for when looking for a band to join? So Brittany, we'll start with you this time.
Cool. Since I am doing that currently, I feel like I'm pretty qualified to talk about this one. Number one is looking for a band that is within a driving distance that you're willing to do. Atlanta is really big, so north side of Atlanta to south side of Atlanta is like an hour, hour and a half. So finding what you're willing to do to find a band, that's important. But also looking for a band that meets kind of the vibe that you're going for. Is it a band that goes and performs at Midwest? Is it one that's just coming together to make music together once a week? It like, how serious is it? And also just trying to find a band that has the instrumental needs that you're looking for. If it's more of a chill band, they're probably just going to take whoever. If it's more of a serious band, they're going to be a little pickier about who they choose, and what the kind of instrumentation they need. So just kind of keeping on the lookout, but being open to change as needed, because I prefer to play the bass clarinet, but I sure can play the regular clarinet if I need to.
Flexibility. Definitely a good thing. Tony, what do you recommend looking for when looking for a band to join?
I kind of co-sign everything that Brittany said. Uh, uh, just finding that right chemistry and knowing what your abilities are as a musician, because you don't want to overtax yourself and get in over your head a lot of times, but at the same time, you want to be challenged a little bit. So just finding that right chemistry. And if you can't find a band in your immediate area, it doesn't hurt to try and start one.
That's what we call striving for the highest right there. All right, Eddie, what do you recommend looking for when looking for a band to join?
Yeah, basically, look through your network of contacts from your college days or even your days post grad, and find someone in your local art scene that you may or may not have gone to school with, and see if they know, or if they don't know a buddy, they might know a guy who knows a guy. But if all else fails, I mean, there is the Association of Concert Bands. There is a website, acbands.org, and you can look at their member page. And they have a plethora of bands that you could check out, and they'll provide a little more detail on whether they are completely open ensembles or if they are audition only. But that's one good place to look if you are not sure where to start.
That's some great information. acbands.org. That's a great place to start. All right, the next question. What are the biggest benefits you see and experience in staying involved with music as an alumni? When time is limited, why should that be the choice we make? Tony, we're going to start with you on this one.
I have 3 reasons for this one. I was kind of waiting on this one. First reason, the service never stops. And if you can provide joy to someone else through music, then it's our duty to create that environment. The second part is the fellowship of it, as well as your own mental health. After you've been working a long day, sometimes you need that release, and what better way to do it than with music, which it can actually improve your mental health. And the third reason is that you owe it to the 75-year-old you. What do you want to see the 75-year-old? Because it's been scientifically proven that music helps to maintain and sometimes improve cognitive skills in elderly people. So just think about your grandparents and the conversations that you have and how you want them to maintain certain memories, certain activities, and it's always connected through music.
That's some really great advice, and it's tied right in with our lessons. All right, Eddie, what are the biggest benefits you see and experience in staying involved with music as an alumni? And when time is limited, why should that be the choice we make?
The biggest benefits I see is you're continuing the universal language that is music from ever dying off. No matter the ensemble, no matter the medium, you're keeping that language going for generations to come. It's an obligation and a duty for those of us to, do it where and when we can. To piggyback off of Anthony, it improves mental health greatly, and it has always been a source of, in a way, therapy for myself. Just dealing with depression, and music helps. Helps out a little bit.
Excellent. Brittany, what are the biggest benefits you see and experience in staying involved with music as an alumni? And of course, when that time is limited, why should that be the choice we make?
Yeah. So Tony and Eddie really hit the high points of that. But also, I feel like a lot of us, we watch our college bands on game day and we're like, man, I miss that. And like relive the glory days a little bit in your head. But that doesn't have to stop. You don't have to miss it if you're still involved with that, whether that's your alumni band, whether that's a community band, whether that's just playing on your own. You don't have to miss it if you're still doing it. And, it improves, everything that Tony said is about mental health, echoing that as someone who struggles a lot with anxiety and depression. But also, it just makes me feel good to know that I'm doing something. Neil Gaiman a while ago made a speech called Make Good Art. If you haven't read it, you should. It's a little funny, it's a lot serious, but making good art, making the art that only you can do, whatever form that takes, that's it does a lot of good for you, just making something.
Awesome. And I think music may even provide a safe space for so many people out there. All right, question number 7. This is the last one that I have, but if there's anybody that's in here that wants to submit a question to the chat, you may do that and I'll take a look at it. So the final question I have is, have you been in contact with chapters that aren't your own, but are located where you've moved since graduation? And if so, how have you been involved with those chapters? So Eddie, I'm going to start with you because I know you definitely have moved since graduation.
Yeah, now residing in Phoenix, Arizona. The closest chapter to me is the Beta Omicron chapter at Arizona State University. And my wife and I, we've reached out to them periodically, or we've even walked on the campus on the occasion of like a leadership conference just happening to be in town, and bumped into the students and said, "Hey, how's it going? What are you guys doing? When's the next big event? And how can we support you guys? Whether it's attending a fundraiser or just showing up and supporting them at an ASU football game. Really just go out and reach out to them."
Awesome. Have you been in contact with some chapters that aren't your own, but are located where you've moved since graduation? And how have you been involved with some of those chapters if you've done such a thing?
Sorry, was that to me? My internet cut out for a second.
Oh, yeah, I'll reread that. Have you been in contact with chapters that aren't your own, but are located where you've moved since graduation? And if so, how have you been involved with those chapters?
Yeah. So my partner is a life member of the Kappa Mu chapter at UGA. So he is also the immediate past president of the Kappa Mu Alumni Association. So by virtue of dating him, I go to Kappa Mu stuff. I actually have also been involved with the rechartering of a few chapters since I graduated, Valdosta State being one of them. Also, Morehouse College recently rechartered, and I was involved with that. So physically going to stuff and making those connections is important. We love the face-to-face interactions, even if you have extreme social anxiety like I do. It's not as bad when it's something when you're meeting people that you know that you already have something in common with, because always easy to talk about band, always easy to talk about marching, about game day experiences, about shared brotherhood experiences, how that's different. Also going to district conventions, great for that. So go to your district convention, no matter where you live. Um, but also, Atlanta has a lot of chapters, so I'm lucky in that regard that if I reach out to an alumni from one of those chapters, they generally can put me in contact with someone. Georgia State is actually going to be performing at the aquarium over the holidays, so I'm going to reach out to New Alpha and see if there's anything I can do to help support them, because brotherhood.
Awesome. And Tony, how have you been in contact with chapters that aren't your own, but are located where you've moved since graduation?
Well, I'm still in the same area as my home chapter, so I still contribute whenever they need me during membership intake processes and things of that nature. But when I put on my human resources hat for entrepreneurship, I've reached out to chapters all throughout the country, and one of my initiatives is to give brothers and sisters first priority when it comes to internships that can actually turn into partnerships. I don't like to use the word jobs. I'd rather have them as partners so that they can create their own, whatever that might be. So I'm working with different brothers and sisters at various chapters with their school music programs, which are in music industry, and giving them those opportunities that are so hard to find in the industry itself.
That sounds great. What a way to build bridges. All right, I think we've got a question from the floor. Okay, so here's a question from the floor. So I'm going to be putting you guys on the spot. For those of us who still do lots of music-related service, how do you avoid service-related burnout while still keeping the music itself a focus? I'll read that again, give you guys a second to think about it. It's the teacher and me saying, wait time, got to do it. So for those of us who still do lots of music-related service, how do you avoid service-related burnout while still keeping the music itself a focus? And I'll let anybody take the floor that feels like they're ready to answer the question.
I'll go first because I feel like Tony has probably some similar things in mind, because we think very similarly in a lot of these regards. But just keeping the passion, it doesn't have you don't have to burn out if you still have joy in it. If you find something about it that makes you happy, whether that's like involving yourself with a fellowship, knowing that you're getting to hang out with people while you're doing something, whether that's finding a piece that someone is playing that you really enjoy, and kind of living in the music a little bit during that. But just find something about it that makes you happy, and then the burnout will be staved off quite a bit.
Awesome. All right. Tony, Eddie, got anything to add to Brittany's comment?
I just love what I do. I mean, if you love it, it's not work, but I also set parameters. So I rarely respond to any type of text or any phone calls after 9 o'clock. I have a 9 and 9 rule, nothing before 9 a.m. and nothing after 9 p.m. At that point, that's, family time, things of that nature. And on the morning side, it gives me a chance to get the day going before I tackle on anything. And just learning and understanding how to have that balance. That's the biggest thing. But setting those parameters, setting those boundaries, and not being afraid to say no, which I rarely do say no, but it's all about proper scheduling and sticking to a schedule.
Awesome. It's always important to set those limits. You might have a love for something, but you don't want to overdo it, because this connects also with Brittany's answer about burnout, because you can burn out if you say yes too much.
We
Eddie?
love a work-life balance.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it boils down to a work-life balance, both in your everyday, day-to-day 9 to 5 grind and with your activities. You need to set those boundaries in what you can and cannot do right then and there, and sticking to schedules, and making yourself flexible to an extent. Just always make sure that you have the capacity to do the task at hand, and if not, delegate.
Ever
Reach out
so
for
important.
support.
Ever so important to be able to delegate. Easy to say, sometimes hard to do. All right. I have not seen any more questions from the chat. So if there's anybody with a last second question, go ahead and drop it in the chat real quick. I'll give you about 30 seconds to a minute. And if that's the case, then we will probably go ahead and wrap up today's fireside chat. I want to thank our 3 panelists, Eddie, Brittany, and Tony, for your wisdom and your responses to our questions. I appreciate all that you guys have done. And please, everybody in the chat, continue to strive for the highest.